Whoa, 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 whoa.
That's how we do it. That's how, yep, keep shuffling. There we go.
Well,
Mario's
Paul.
OCD kicks in at the beginning of every episode. Mario, thank you so much for wearing a backwards hat. You look like a reverse Von Miller haircut.
Listen, I wanted to ask you. I wanted to ask you how amazing the Bills game was because you were there trying to recruit players for the Giants.
That was Tommy DeVito's agent. That was not me. You know how much of a how
that was Paul Stellato.
Well, he's got a gold iPhone. Like he's got a gold iPhone.
You do too.
You guys know that he's kind of a big deal. Like he's not just Tommy DeVito's agent. Like he was just put into like the New Jersey like high school football Hall of Fame or something like that. Like he's kind of like a New Jersey area. Yeah, I mean, he was on the Dan Le Batard show. They interviewed him, and he was talking about it. He's
just because he was
on.
No,
it was like the New Jersey Italian sports something or other.
Hey, forget about it. Well, Paul, I wanted to tell you that cars in the garage. There's no liquor missing, and the house didn't burn down. As Ryan and Joe carried the torch last week for the post game.
Yeah, they sure
Chargers
did.
Game. Wanted to thank Ryan. Yep.
Thank you
for that.
Thank you.
And you've been doing your best Adam Sandler impression with freaking 8 crazy nights over there at your house. How many Christmases do you have?
It doesn't matter. Listen, I'm just glad that you've prepared the folks in #Nation for a great night, because who wears a double snapback hat? You. It's double snapback. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of resistance that's holding in. That's a lot of hair that's trying to come. Yeah, it's a big hat.
It's a big head.
Yep, and I still outperformed Von Miller this year. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You were just as active as him on game day.
Yeah, but I wish I had his bank account.
Can we start with that?
Can we start? Let's talk overall thoughts. Von Miller being a healthy scratch. That's a lot of money in the cabinet, Paul.
Is he really a healthy scratch? I'm with Ryan. It was about time. Yeah. It's, you got Epinesa back. God, every week I say that. It's like still shocking to me that I have to say, well, you got Epinesa back. I think the Bills are on the hook.
For Epinesa to get playing time.
Well, and if you think about it, Epinesa is in a contract year, right? And you'd end up taking $10.5 million because there's no injury guarantees in Von's deal. So you're past Von after this year. $10.5 million, I think, is what it takes to say goodbye to that. And Bills look pretty close to saying goodbye to that.
Oh, so unfortunate.
Right? Like, it's been bad, guys. It has not been great. And admittedly, giving Leonard Floyd more snaps was clearly a more effective answer. Not that the Bills got home yesterday, but the pressure packages just looked better without Von out there.
It's weird because those Patriot games, especially for Josh Allen, they just something funky going on. Like there's always something weird that happens when the Bills play the Patriots. It's either, they're going to score on 7 straight possessions, or he's going to struggle. And it just seems like that's the recipe when Josh Allen plays the Patriots. Only 3 tackles. That's right. And I still have more rushing yards than Reggie Bush's year in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about Von Miller, I mean, we have been talking for a few weeks about, is Kingsley Jonathan? I mean, can he give you something more than Von Miller? And he had a tackle. So he officially, in the one game that he played this year, he was a third of Von's productivity. So
Ryan, you have such disdain when you say Kingsley Jonathan. Almost like it's almost like you have to suffer it's almost like you have to suffer through that name.
Well, you know me, I would prefer to just give more snaps to Shaq Lawson, but that's just me. So
you've stood on the table for Shaq Lawson quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, that's the end of that. See, I muted his microphone so he can't defend Shaq Lawson.
Paul also said he was going to get cut or traded before the end of the season. Before the beginning of the season. So
sure did.
Hey, he's 1 for 2. He's 1 for 2. He did say that Boogie Basham wasn't going to make the team. So
facts. And outside of Von Miller, you could make the case for Sam Martin being the MVP. Outshined by Rasul Douglas, was just man on fire. And he was there was a post-game interview, and they were asking him questions about, how did you mature into the defense? Have you always been a take chance kind of guy? And like, he was on enough teams to tell you that, like, he wants to do things his way, right? Like, he's an aggressive guy. If you just let him go out there and play, he takes a lot of chances. But then you get games like this, and there are going to be times in his career where he costs you touchdowns he shouldn't give up, right? Because he definitely takes chances. But boy, Bean, good grief, right? Like, good grief. And you still have another year of Rasul Douglas.
You still get another year. That's the biggest part of that.
Yeah. You still got one more
Frees
year.
up Trey White to move to free safety next year.
For those of you that don't know, in hashtag Nation and Bills Mafia, that's a behind the scenes slight dig that Ryan wants to throw at me because people are posting, they're posting Trey White. Can you imagine Trey White and Rasul Douglas next year? I'm like,
Mario, your arm's got to get tired from carrying that torch of trying to move Trey White to safety.
Trey White's going to be a safety on this team next year. You watch him. He's going to play next to Rapp.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, and then I think the other thing. So the Rasul Douglas trade was absolutely massive for this team going forward. I think they finally made the right decision with Von. The other thing that we've talked about quite a bit is Ed Oliver, who's consistently proving that contract is a value proposition for the Bills. I mean, he's still number one in the NFL of interior defensive linemen with pressure rate when double teamed, which is an incredible stat when you think about he's not even the guy that's designed to be double teamed in that defense.
Right.
And he's still winning at that type of rate. But I think something that's fallen off a little bit of the radar was a huge win for this Buffalo defense is the emergence of Terrell Bernard and what he's done with the defense. I actually saw the Bills tweeted out the stat today, which I found fascinating, was he's the first player in NFL history since 1991 to have a season of 6 or more sacks, 3 or more interceptions, and 3 or more fumble recoveries. That's just just unbelievable when you take what they replaced, what we questioned, right? Edmonds, would they be able to replace him? Not only did they replace him, but they replaced him with a guy on the roster at a tenth of the cost when it comes down to salary money and what that has allowed them to do flexibility wise with the salary cap. So, I mean, that signing has been just absolutely massive for them as well. And then the last thing from last week is DaQuan Jones back and how much different the run defense looks when DaQuan Jones is on the field and just how much of an impact he really truly can make. And if that was him first game back from injury, what that's going to continue to look like this week against the Dolphins, next week, the following week in the playoffs, and kind of as they go on, that's a big addition to that defense.
Well, 3 points there. So first off, the Bills aren't in the playoffs yet. So that is still to come. So be careful with what you say there, because the Bills have not locked their playoff ticket just yet. DaQuan Jones, when he went out, was one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. And now getting him back, I think is going to unlock Ed Oliver, right, to a higher percentage than, because you can't, I mean, you're right. From a pressure percentage standpoint, you double team Oliver, it almost doesn't matter sometimes, right? And now you're going to put DaQuan Jones out there. It's not just going to impact their run defense, right? Like, he still generates pressure. And the third point, I honestly don't remember. Oh, I do remember. So imagine a scenario, right? Trey White gets hurt. Had Milano never got hurt, would Bean have ever traded for Douglas? Right. Yeah, the reason I asked that is because if you look at the way the injuries all laid out, you were still without Vaughn. You lose Trey. You lose Milano, and you're looking around. You're like, we can't do this, right? Like, we just can't. We can't do this. We could take one. We knew one was going to be there. We could take another injury, but we can't take those 3 guys being out. We can't do it. So do you think Milano going down was one of the reasons why they made the deal for Douglas? Had Milano been healthy, does Bean make that trade for Rasul Douglas? I think it's an interesting conversation.
I don't think he does at all. Yeah. I mean, he obviously it was a guy they had their eye on for a while. And at that point in time, I don't think the Green Bay Packers thought that they were going to be anywhere near playoff contention. So they're like, okay, let's try to get some draft capital. We'll try to see what we can do here. And then boom, they started winning a couple games, and they had him across from Alexander. Like, how how did that not work? Like, how do you not still have those two guys on your team? You know, thinking they're probably not going to resign him and whatnot. But that's a very interesting point. If Trey had not gone down, does that deal even get made? I think something tells me that they're always looking for cornerbacks in that type of defense and how that style is for McDermott. That they always have their eye on cornerbacks that are around the league that they can trade for or make their team better. So I don't know. It's kind of 50-50 for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Milano going down, I think it kind of changed the defensive philosophy. There was less pressure coming from the linebacker position, more pressure having to come from the front, which necessitated going out and getting another corner, right? That could really play that aggressive style man-to-man defense that they've been having Rasul Douglas play. So I think it was a combination of Elam really not emerging into the kind of man-to-man aggressive corner that I think they wanted him to be. I think they wanted Elam to be more of a Douglas type of corner in that defense. I mean, that's really the mold that he fits into better versus a Trey White style of play. But then as soon as you lose Milano and you're like, well, we're not going to be bringing a ton of pressure from the linebacker position. That pressure now comes from the safety position that you're seeing in Poyer, Hyde, Teron Johnson coming off the edge, things like that. We need a corner who we can just stick on someone and say, go shut that guy down. And everybody else is going to kind of play, cover 2, cover 3 behind you. So that we can bring pressure in better ways than just bringing Matt Milano off the edge or up the middle or wherever we decide to line him up. So I think that's an interesting point, Paul. I think they are looking for corner depth, but probably not to the extent of a Rasul Douglas. It's probably a different corner that they go out and get at the deadline, if not for Milano going down.
And kudos to, Sean McDermott. I mean, you talk about these guys, they get antiquated and set in their ways to do things how they've been doing them and how things were successful. By all means, Sean McDermott as a defensive coordinator was a successful defensive coordinator in the NFL. And then, all that stuff combined, he ends up changing his philosophy with putting Douglas and playing 10-on-10 on the other side, like you guys are talking about. How about let's tip our cap to Christian Benford, man. I mean, that guy, he's been playing out of his mind too. I mean, if they're not picking on Douglas, they're trying to pick on him and they're not successful at it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Mar, right? Because at some point, that was the thing about Bailey Zappi, right? Is that Rasul Douglas was going to get opportunities because Bailey Zappi's not going to be able to not throw it at whoever Rasul Douglas is covering, right? Like he's just not that level of quarterback where he's going to be able to field general, his way around that. So Rasul Douglas was going to get a lot of looks, but Christian Benford, a quiet corner, that's a great thing in this Bills defense, right? Like great job to Christian Benford this season. And it's, I see the chat talking about Tre'Davious White. Just to bring everybody up to speed, right? Tre'Davious White is a $16 million cap hit. When it comes to the salary cap, the rules and regulations around how you manage the salary cap are different than in previous seasons. So like when players go on IR, you're not avoiding their salary anymore, right? So the Bills right now, $16 million cap hit for Trey White in 2024. If they were to release him, they could save $6 million, but ultimately $10.3 million of that money you'd still have to account for on the 2024 salary cap. Whether you put him on IR or not, is that you can't use IR to circumvent the salary cap. Just so people are aware that that's how.
Yeah, a lot of those times they've been using the added voided years to circumvent that, and that's
right. And that might be something that happens, right? Is that if Trey is really in danger of missing seriously, a serious long amount of time, Achilles injuries scare me, right? Because those are long recovery times per player. Sometimes players can come back right away, but oftentimes that is a long road. And Trey does not have any voided years in his deal. So he does become a candidate to, let's tack on 2 or 3 voided years at the end of this. Let's spread some of that money out a little bit, especially if he's going to miss time at the beginning of next season.
He's going to sit on PUP. He's probably going to sit on PUP for quite a while. And that's absolutely an interesting thing as well. I mean, and then just to kind of circle around, I think it's Fetus 97, which is a fun name.
Paul Berg. That's Paul.
Yeah, but talking about moving Elam, I mean they did have a deal by reports. They had a deal to move Elam, But Elam was dealing with injuries as well. So I think they're they didn't put him, he wasn't on IR yet. But he was dealing with injury at that time. I think there was some concern in-house whether he could pass a physical as part of a trade. As that, and I don't think they even wanted to go down that road with him because he was put on IR not long after the trade deadline. So I think that kind of came into play with, why not flip him for the third that supposedly was on the table? Well, one, you don't want to necessarily give up on a first round corner for a third rounder, a year in to his time in the NFL. But the other thing is if you don't think he can pass a physical, you don't even try to go down that road because all it's going to do is put egg on the face of the organization for trying to trade an injured player. It's just a bad look all around. So
yeah, I was gonna say from the other point, I was about to say the words break that egg. If you try to trade him and you didn't pass the physical, now you're in trouble. That's why would I play another down for you? No, you're trying to get rid of me.
Well, I mean, why even breach that subject with the player, with the other teams, with the players in the locker room where these guys are like, geez, I can't even go out and get hurt. And you're going to try and trade me. Like, those are all things that come into play. And those are things that Bean has been very hyper conscious of throughout his tenure is, by all accounts, Bean is the guy that kind of keeps everybody level in the locker room. He's the guy that kind of, players feel comfortable going to. He takes care of those guys. He's not gonna put himself or the organization in a situation to look bad for players because he still wants to be a free agent destination and a place where guys come at bargains so that he can continue to keep this roster competitive when you have contracts like Allen and Milano and Oliver and those guys that cost a lot of money.
Yeah, we all value players differently, right?
Oh God.
Sure
oh
do.
God.
We've known that for years, Mario.
So why don't we get to the game? Post game, brought to you by Mr. Rogers Homes, your Arizona relocation specialist. Sean, building wealth in the state of Arizona. You could see MrRogersHomes.com for additional info. So this game was a lot closer than I think it needed to be. I got on the halftime show with Joe, and there was something unsettling about Josh's first half. Everything seemed pushed, everything seemed rushed. And the first thing is, okay, is he hurt? And then you see the end of the game, he takes that hit. He's, shaking his hand because in his throwing shoulder, you're like, don't love that. Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of little things that can lead to a lot of speculation no injury report is going to be released until tomorrow, regardless. Josh has had shoulder issues all season, so this is not a
they were looking at his left shoulder after that.
Right.
So just to be clear, after that he went down, he took that shot on his left shoulder. They were looking at that left shoulder. So hopefully the injury report comes out, and if they do say shoulder, maybe they specify.
They won't.
No, they won't. But maybe McDermott will get asked, and he'll give some clarity around that.
But Mario, was Josh's performance in the first half and really through the majority of the game, was that a product of Belichick just giving the middle finger to Robert Kraft in the press box, saying I could still nullify one of the best players in the NFL with scheme, or is the Bills' offensive line in trouble? Or is Josh really not on it right now? Like, there's a mix of things that this all could be, and it's all speculation. But what was your takeaway from that game?
I think that the Buffalo Bills as a whole are trying to create a new identity near the end of the year where it's just not always Josh Allen. And they're trying to spread the ball around. Obviously, we saw the emergence of James Cook since Brady has taken over. But since Brady has taken over, Allen really hasn't been performing like the Josh Allen that we're used to with, 70% completion percentage and all that stuff. I mean, he only has in his last four games, the four victories versus New England, the Chargers, Dallas, and Kansas City, he has completed 55% of his passes, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Obviously, you look at the other side of that, he has 115 yards rushing in those total in those 4 games for 6 touchdowns. So obviously those factor in, but he's really not throwing the ball like we have seen Josh Allen throw the ball. I think he might be hurt, but you talk about certain games that go on. They didn't need him against Dallas. They were going to run the ball. That was their philosophy. It started to work. James Cook was feeling it. So you decide to go with the hot hand. I understand that. But then you go to the Chargers. Now, a team who just fired their coach, who doesn't have any tendencies. You didn't play your best game and still won. They didn't play their best game against New England and still won. In the past, those would have been losses by these Bills teams that we have seen. But the talent and the philosophy that they have going into certain games like that, they could still not play at their best and win. Although it is troubling for a lot of Buffalo Bills fans to see Josh Allen not playing his best. But when he doesn't play his best, they usually lose. He didn't play his best and they still won. So that is something I think Bills fans can at least feel optimistic about for going into, obviously the Week 18 matchup with Miami, which we'll talk about, but then into the playoffs as well, is the fact that, hey, he's not – teams see this. They see the film. He's not playing his best right now, and they're still winning games. True, it was against a 4-11 team. I understand that. But you still
look at the games that the Bills have had that were close. The Chargers game, that was close. The Patriots game, that was close, right?
Yeah.
Like every game has been close to the vest. And I think Ryan will attest that's a sign of a team that is, not exactly put together the way that they think they're put together, right? Like at some point, you got to put a whooping on a team that you should put a whooping on. And you should have beat the Chargers handily. You should have beat the Patriots handily. You didn't, and you didn't, right? You squeaked. And I know Ryan is not the biggest Sean McDermott fan, but, it's clear that Josh Allen didn't buy his receivers gloves for Christmas because they sure didn't make his life easy. Even had they caught the football, I don't really know how much of a difference this game would have been. Yes, the Bills had 5 drops, 4 of them in the first half. It's big focus issues, but how much of a difference did that really make in the game?
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of situations, right? There was the drive after the touchdown in the third quarter. So the third quarter, Buffalo gets the ball. They go 75 yards in 8 plays, and they score a touchdown, right, to make it a 2-score game. New England answers with a punt. Buffalo gets the ball back, and they have that 3rd and 1 play where it's the heavy formation. Edwards comes in as eligible, then they give it to Latavius Murray right up the middle, and he gets nothing. This was after there were at least 2 instances early in the game, including the touchdown, where they just got behind Josh and pushed him forward for a yard, right? So it's like, why go to Murray there? How much of that was Brady? How much of that was McDermott? Like, what's the thought process there? So that's one. That was a killer. That was a drive killer there. Because they were right on. I think they were at the Buffalo. They were at their own 37, right? So you get a first down there. You get another first down. Suddenly you're across the 50, right? And you're in business. Then they had the later drive, where Murray just dropped it. He had the first down and he just dropped it. And that was one of those situations where, what are we doing with Latavius Murray still in this offense? Like Leonard Fournette looked great. The one game that he got a chance to play. Why is he not active? Why are we continuing to give Latavius Murray? I joked about it earlier in the year when he was the one that hosted the players only meeting, right? Or called it. And then suddenly he was like active and getting carries the next day. And it was like, okay, well, is that because you can't bench the guy who called the players only meeting? Now the season's waning on, and it's like Latavius Murray at this point, is he more of a liability than he is anything in this offense? You've got Ty Johnson, who's a good complement to James Cook. Yeah. Why not Fournette for those short yardage situations? I mean, Leonard Fournette has been able to get you, 3 yards in a cloud of dust his entire career, right? Like, he's been in the NFL long enough where he can go get you 3 yards just as easily as Latavius Murray can do it. He just has the opportunity to break a big play as well. So I think that there were some questions there. The other thing, I think, Josh, he was sugar high Josh to start the game. I felt like they came out flat. I tweeted it out, right? Like, it was the McDermott special to start the game. Like, you come out back against the wall, game you got to have, team you should bury, and you come out flat. And you just, you can't get anything going. The defense bails you out. That's the McDermott special, right? The defense is going to keep you in this game. The hope is that you're going to score enough points one way or the other to wind up winning this football game. I got a tweet back. I'll not share who the person was, not to call him out, but he said, oh, come on. It's it's 2 possessions into the game. The defense is playing great. McDermott brought his defense ready to play. Cool. He's not the defensive coordinator. He is, but he's supposed to be the head coach, right? Like, his job is to get the entire team ready to play. And the fact remains, they ran the opening kickoff back on you. So special teams didn't help. Offense comes out flat. That's not complimentary football that Sean McDermott preaches. So, this is a problem, right? Like if you're going to struggle in 2 out of the 3 phases of the game, you're not going to beat good football teams. And now you're in a situation because you haven't beaten bad football teams that you're supposed to beat. Now you're in a situation where you have to go beat a good football team.
Yeah. It's a near win or win and get in situation. Buffalo needs help.
It's win because even if you get in without the win, you don't want to go on the road. Nobody wants to go on the road in the playoffs, right? That's why home field advantage is so valuable. Win and you're the 2 seed. Baltimore's going to draw Cleveland at some point here, and you can make the argument if you're the 2 seed, the playoffs may go through Buffalo if you're the 2 seed. It may go through Miami if they're the 2 seed, because I don't have a lot of confidence that Baltimore can beat Cleveland. I think Cleveland matches up with them really well defensively. And I think Flacco's playing out of his mind right now, and he's fresh. He's off the couch.
He's got nothing to lose, man. Chick stick scars, Ryan.
You know what Joe Flacco has on his lap right now is the ability to kind of close the book on, is Joe Flacco a Hall of Fame quarterback, right? Like if he leads a deep playoff run with this Cleveland Browns team coming off the couch, he probably cements himself as a Hall of Fame quarterback. I think he's already in based on what he did in Baltimore, but I think this would just kind of cement it for him. So I think there's a lot on the line, but ultimately if you can get the 2 seed, you're in great shape. If you have to back your way into the playoffs, this is not a football team that is going to perform well on the road in the playoffs against some of these teams like Kansas City. Say what you want about Kansas City, they're not playing great, but you don't want to go into Arrowhead in the playoffs. You just don't want to do it. You probably don't want to go to Baltimore in the playoffs. Jacksonville, maybe you deal with Jacksonville in the playoffs, but I think there's a lot there's a lot on the line this next week, and there's not a lot that this team has done over the last few weeks to instill any confidence that they can get it done.
Mario,
what?
I'm scared.
Are you?
As a Bills fan,
you tend to get a little worried.
Well, this is at the beginning of the season, right? This was the game that I was hoping didn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And here we are, and it matters.
And it matters.
I think now Miami's banged up.
Yeah, looking at the report, obviously Jalen Waddle, uncertain about that. Robert Hunt, the right guard, Raheem Mostert, and just recently, with 3 minutes to go in the game of a very lopsided loss, Bradley Chubb goes down tearing his ACL. They had already lost Phillips, so I mean that defense in and of itself is held together with duct tape and bubble gum. And Xavier Howard is the latest man. All reports point toward Eli Apple. Now, we don't know if it's gamesmanship or whatnot, but Eli Apple seems to be the guy that's going to – and how poetic would that be? What poetic justice would that be for Allen just to throw for 400 on Eli Apple? Like, it's one of those things where it's like the vindication, like when Jalen Ramsey called Allen trash, and then he goes to L.A. in the first game and hits Diggs for a bomb. For a touchdown. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where obviously a lot of the Buffalo Bills fans are very, very nervous about it. Bills Mafia #Nation. And well, you should be. I mean, you have to go into Miami, but if it was based on the reaction of the fan base, because you could tell a lot by how certain teams are performing. If you don't follow them religiously like these other fans do, like someone even tweeted out, oh, they're having the game at night, and then so Buffalo doesn't have to play in the sun. The league's screwing the Dolphins again. I'm like, is this what we're doing now? This is what we're doing. It's just ridiculous. But I mean, there's a certain confidence that when you go into games over teams that you've already beaten, there's a certain confidence there, and there's a certain lack of confidence in the opponent. Like I'm not in the Miami locker room. I'm just saying that when I played and you beat a team already, you have a certain confidence that you can already do it. So you play a little looser, you play a little, more free and like that. And if you're a team that got beat, which I was on that side too, you're sitting there going, what do we have to do? Like, is this going to happen again? Like, and for the Miami Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills specifically, what is Allen, 10-2 against them in his career? I mean, the one loss obviously is well noted. They love showing the gif of Allen putting his head onto his shoulder when I don't even think Tua remembers that moment. And then there was the Charles Clay drop. I mean, those are the
Mhm.
only 2 games that
Yeah.
Allen has lost against Miami. And most of the times when he's played in Miami, he has done a lot of stat padding. So I think what the Buffalo Bills are going to try to do for what their philosophy is, they've never seen Rasul Douglas. Remember Trey
No,
White played that
that's true.
first game.
Yep.
I think Dodson may get picked on a lot
Mhm.
in the absence of Matt Milano, because Matt Milano played in that first game. I don't know what they're going to expect from Rasul Douglas. I think that's going to be a very, very telling sign of what happens. I wouldn't put him on Tyreek one-on-one the whole game,
No.
because no one in the league can cover Tyreek one-on-one the whole game.
No.
It's just not feasible. But there are some changes to this Buffalo Bills team. This is not the same team that beat them 48-20. It's a very, very different team.
Well, and
So-
on top of that, I think people are concerned about the Miami offense, right? Saying, well, this is a team that put 70 on the Broncos. And, then they came back the next week and they put 20 on Buffalo, right? Buffalo beat them 48-20. This is an offense that, when they're playing good teams, struggles to score 20 points. Since scoring 70 on the Broncos, the games that they've scored over 30 points were against the Giants, the Panthers, let's see here, the Patriots, not against the Raiders, the Jets, the Commanders. Like, these are teams that are ass. The Jets again, right? Like, they're not scoring points against good football teams. They scored 22 against Dallas. They scored 19 against the Ravens. They scored 14 against the Chiefs. Like, this is a team that does have multiple games against good football teams and struggles to get into the end zone. And that's why you see a lot of Dolphins fans scared for this game. Thank God Miami's at home. It's the only advantage they have. This is a team that struggles to score against good football teams. It's just a fact. Like, it's been that way the whole season. They curb stomp the bad teams, and then they struggle to score points against decent teams.
Well, and the other reason that the Miami fans are scared is because the Bills are what the Patriots were to the Bills for years and years, right? Like, the Bills for the Dolphins, the Bills are the dragon that they have to slay. And that's become a very tall task for them. I mean, you came into this season, Miami was in the talks of Super Bowl favorites, right? Like, this was what the division was supposed to come down to. It was supposed to come down to Buffalo and Miami. The problem was, for Miami, at least for their fans, they went and hung 70 on the Broncos. They were thumping their chest. Yep. All of a sudden they come into Buffalo and they get mollywopped, right? And it's like, here we go. It's the same old Dolphins. It was all over, Miami sports media is like, are we ever going to get over the hump? We're going to have to take out the Bills, that all that talk there. So now you're coming in week 18 with an opportunity to knock the Bills out of the playoffs potentially. And we'll know that heading into the game where that lays, right? Like, if Pittsburgh wins Saturday at 4:00 and Jacksonville wins on Sunday, you're win or you're going home for Buffalo. And
that's right.
Again, Buffalo has not typically, at least under McDermott, performed well when their backs are against the wall. They just, for whatever reason, don't. They operate really well as the underdog, but that's different from being back against the wall. Gotta have it, right? They tend to turtle. They tend to play safer than normal. They tend to have a lot of their own individual problems. They get in their own heads. But for Miami, again, this is the opportunity to go get the 2 seed, go get the division, slay the dragon. There's a lot that rides on that. And there's a lot of questions about Mike McDaniel. Can he win the big game? This is his second opportunity now to beat Buffalo in what's considered a big game. Can he get it done? It's going to be, I don't have a ton of confidence. The only thing I do, Paul, and this may help you, is all I do is when I start to get skittish on what this game is going to look like, I just go look at the line. Vegas has the Bills as a 3-point favorite on the road, which means
that's crazy.
You're essentially a 4.5 point favorite neutral site. You're a 6-point favorite at home. If this game were in Buffalo, they would be a touchdown favorite over this Miami Dolphins team. Yeah, that's a big deal in a week 18. Winner takes the AFC East. Winner gets the 2 seed in the AFC playoffs. Vegas likes Buffalo. I certainly think the injuries that Mario went over don't help Miami's chances. But I think at the end of the day, people largely in the know, experts, Vegas, have felt like the Bills are the best team in the AFC East all season long. Ever since Aaron Rodgers went down, I think everyone has felt like Buffalo's just a better team than anybody else in that division. Miami's not quite there. So if anyone out there is getting skittish, just pull up FanDuels, pull up DraftKings, check out the line, be like, okay,
Yeah.
4.5 point favorites, neutral site, 3-point favorites on the road. That's a pretty big deal in the NFL and a gotta have it game.
But
Yeah.
Mario,
Paul,
is there any concern that what the Patriots did against Buffalo to keep, Buffalo stymied can be duplicated by the Patriots? Anytime you have a game with a team that shouldn't be in it, that's in it the whole time, there's always the concern of, well, this team's not very good. So if they figured something out, how hard is it to replicate that?
Well, two things. Number one, how much, I mean, there's always little things that teams take out of certain scenarios. Like when they were in this, formation, they tend to run this, and this is what beats them. I mean, two things. Number one, I think you have to ask yourself, was it more of the Buffalo Bills making mistakes and not having their head in the game, or was it what New England was really doing to them? That's the first thing you have to ask yourself. The second thing is Vic Fangio is a stubborn old man.
God,
he thinks he knows what to do against this team, and it went 0 for 1. Now he's had how many weeks now to make adjustments for this game, to do what he has to do. Now he's the guy, even though McDermott's been doing it all season, he's the guy that's going to sit there and go, all right, I'm missing these pieces. How do I cover up my weaknesses and put my strengths in there? I don't have these two maniac edge rushers to go after Allen. What do I do? Do I have smaller guys in there? Force Joe Brady to run the ball? Like if he's patient enough to run the ball, but if he runs the ball, that's less time for my offense to have the ball. Blah blah blah, and also there's stuff.
Buffalo can run the ball. That's the problem too.
No, I mean, now they can. They weren't really running it the first matchup. Right. So a lot of those things, you take little pieces. What I would like Buffalo to do is to take that touchdown play that Michigan ran against Bama tonight. Please take that. That was pretty amazing. But I think those are some of the things that you have to try to take into account. I think it was more Buffalo's head wasn't in the game, and they were making stupid mistakes. You told me, Paul, 5 drops. Okay, you catch those passes, it puts you in different scenarios to call better plays, and some of those drops were drive killers. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and I guess Ryan had mentioned it earlier. Leonard Fournette not being active. So the rules on practice squad, right? You can bring a player up for only so many games before they have to be on your 53-man roster. Leonard Fournette was only active for 1 game. They could have called him up for the remainder of the season. Yeah, he's got 2 more games. So obviously, they chose not to activate him because they chose to have Latavius Murray instead. Be that what it may, right? Practice squad players are eligible to play on playoff rosters. Right. So again, you get the opportunity to see what Leonard Fournette can do. And now you could either sit there and just roll that out in the playoffs again. Or you could say, let's deactivate, insert extra safety here, right? Or insert practice squad or insert special teams player. Because I think that's one of the problems with Ty Johnson is you don't want to deactivate Ty Johnson. He plays special teams for you, right? Like Ty Johnson plays a very versatile role as your 3-back. And admittedly, he's a better 2-back than Latavius Murray has been. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Leonard Fournette gives you that inside the 20s player that I think Buffalo still struggles to have. And on top of that, I was shocked to watch James Cook run the clock out at the end of the last game. I was shocked. Everybody knew Buffalo was going to run the football and just try and get a first down and end the game, right? And to see James Cook be the back out there, this guy's got the book out on him. Everybody knows you can get the ball out of this guy's hands. So I was shocked to see James Cook out there to run the football down and run the clock. I was shocked.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you see like a Tim Settle maybe goes inactive, or maybe Puna Ford. I think Ford's been playing a little bit better than Settle, to bring on a Fournette. If it's not Murray just being made inactive outright. I think he's been that bad. I think they could definitely make the argument for that. But it would be, Mario, I think Fournette gives you that ability to look at what Spagnuolo is going to do on defense and go, okay, if they're going to try their traditional pass rush, we've got Cook, we've got our normal offense, we've got Josh that can scramble. If they go light, we've got Leonard Fournette who's going to pound it down their throats 20 times this game, and 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Josh Allen with
run him to the
Reggie
dirt.
Gilliam in his ass for 3rd and 1, and will win.
He doesn't either.
Will win the time of possession. Will grind this game out. McDermott loves those kinds of games, right? Like let the defense go do the defense things and just go get a lead and hang on. So I think Fournette gives you more flexibility from an offensive standpoint than Latavius Murray did. Latavius Murray's on the field for pass protection situations. The problem is he's good at it, but the problem is that when he leaks out, he's not a reliable back anymore catching the ball. And even when he catches it, he's not reliable any longer. It just seems like the juice has kind of left him about midway through the season. He just looks slow out on the field. I don't see much there. Fournette, at least, again, playoff Lenny, Super Bowl Lenny, whatever you want to call him. Like he traditionally has gotten stronger as seasons have gone on, and he's fresh. Put the ball in his hands, let him go to work. If he's active, I'm putting money on a Leonard Fournette anytime touchdown going into that game. I think he's going to play a big role if they make him active.
Not as far as speed, so don't jump down my throats on this one. But some of the qualities that James Cook has and some of the qualities that Latavius Murray has, if you were to say, if we could just get some of those best qualities that both those guys have and put them into a back and have that back on this roster, you get playoff Lenny. Because if he's in the game, you usually have Cook's in the game. And this is one of the things I made a point a couple of weeks ago. When Murray's in the game, they're more likely to bring blitzes, therefore have man behind it. Therefore, he's got to try to pick it up. And it's usually around 70-30. He's able to pick it up. I mean, he's great in pass pro. But like you said, Ryan, it seems like he's not really getting to that guy as fast as he was in weeks 1 through 4. So that's happening. So if you want him to try to play man a little bit more, okay, try that. But when Cook's in the game, they're less likely to bring an extra rusher on Allen because of the fact that Cook could still go out and catch the ball now. They've seen it happen. If you put playoff Lenny in there, they don't know what's happening.
Right.
Because he can go out and catch the ball. He's got great hands. He can run the ball, like you said, in between the tackles. He doesn't care. He doesn't care, and the Bills don't care if he's run into the dirt, if it ends up with a Lombardi at the end of this year. He does not care.
No, you have no investment in Fournette. If you have to run him 74 times in a game to win, you're going to run him 74 times. Yeah, that's it. That's all there's to it. He's 28. Like he's not past.
He's young. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not in running back years.
I mean, young, right. I mean, young compared to Latavius Murray, who's 34.
Yeah, 34. Yeah. I totally agree. Totally.
Like agree. I was watching one of the football documentaries the other day, and it was when Marshall Faulk played with Peyton Manning for 1 year in Indianapolis. And he said, and Peyton Manning was talking about, my rookie year was so tough. Marshall was calling out the coverages for me. He was helping me back there. Now, as much as I despise the guy, Leonard Fournette played with Tom Brady. You know what I mean? So having him next to Josh
Blaine
Allen.
Gabbert.
Yeah. Way to kill a momentum. Yeah. No, I'm just saying though, having him in there next to Allen, he could probably pick up things that maybe Allen misses on a check or like a blitz pickup or something like that. He's one of those guys that's smart enough and has a high enough IQ, having played with some elite talent in his career, that he could help Allen out just by being on the field.
Right.
So I think that's an underappreciated part of Leonard Fournette is when Tom Brady came to Tampa wanted every opportunity to move away from Leonard Fournette. And instead they brought him back, and he was their leading rusher that year, and he was in the backfield with Tom Brady, and he was the guy that Tom Brady wanted on the field with him regardless of the situation. So when you've got a guy like Tom Brady, love him, like him, hate him, whatever, one of the best to ever do it, and he's like, that's the guy that I want in the backfield with me when shit hits the fan and I got pressure coming down my throat. That's the guy I want back there to pass pro, to slip out and catch a screen pass, whatever. Like that's an underrated part of what I appreciate about Leonard Fournette and why I really wanted Buffalo to go get him. And another reason why it's been so disappointing that he's been inactive for all this time. I really think that he can be a valuable weapon for this offense. I
think there's a point where you have to kind of not show people what you're doing, right? So I get why he's been inactive up until this point. Sure. But another part of that is evolving the offense. Spring brings up a great point. 12 personnel is back, and it's killing Kincaid's routes. I'll be honest with you, right? Kincaid walking away, he's got 2 touchdowns this year, right? That I think that's a little bit of a disappointment for Bills fans on the stat line, but he soaks up the effective targets. He's getting a lot of production, which is great, right? But I will say that since Knox's return, Kincaid has become less of a focal point in the offense. And one thing that you'll notice is that as Kincaid becomes less effective, so does Diggs. Right? Diggs has become less and less effective from a week-to-week basis. Now, is that because you're in 12 personnel more, so it's a little bit easier to kind of keep track of Stephon Diggs? Yeah, probably. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, probably. So if you're Buffalo, is that something you need to fix going into Miami, or is this just what you do? This is just what you're doing. You're a 12 personnel team. Let's get back on the horse.
Well, of the 66 receptions that Kincaid has, 26 are first downs. So he's proven to be a very, very reliable target for Josh Allen in there. I don't know. I think when they put Knox in there, when they put the 12 personnel in there, I think it's more of the script that Brady wants to run. Like, listen, how do you want to play this? Because if you're just going to put linebackers on these 2 guys, I'll run them out there all day. That's what I'll do. And the fact that, everyone wants to talk about Diggs being injured, what's going on there, and all this other stuff. You got a glorified offensive lineman out there in Gabe Davis now who just blocks all the time. Now, if you want to try to do that with Kincaid and Knox in that 12 personnel, he's going to eat you up the whole day. The other thing is this: Diggs is I want to say your second most explosive weapon on offense. He's been, whether by injury or anything else, he's been neutralized for the last 4 or 5 games. I don't know if it's Brady. I don't know if it's the return of Knox. I don't know what's going on there and all that. And they're still winning, and they're still putting up 20-plus points a game. So when he's about to pop off, it's going to get crazy. So everyone wants to talk about this stuff that Allen was only Allen because of Diggs. These games that Allen hasn't really performed the best of, we remember the first couple of games of the year where he was forcing it to Diggs, and a lot of those turnovers came off of that.
Yep.
So, spread the ball around. Just get first down. Just move the ball. That's all you want. That's all McDermott wants anyway. He doesn't care how it happens. He doesn't care if Diggs has 15 catches or 3. He doesn't care. Do we have 22 first downs? Okay, I'll take it. Do we hold the ball for 37 minutes? I'll take it. You know what I mean? That's what McDermott, I think, is trying to funnel to Brady. And now he had his back against the wall. He said, listen, if you got to run Josh, you got to run Josh. Do it. I don't care. I think those handcuffs were put on Dorsey. I really do. I mean, I don't want to bring up Dorsey, but I really think those handcuffs were put on him because we didn't see Josh running early in the year. He was like mandated to stay in the pocket. So.
Well, and I think there's, a sort of broader case. You bring up Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis, very likely that this is his final year with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, I can't imagine a scenario where he comes back. And you look at, like Shakir's looked good, but again, not getting a ton of targets. Buffalo is 100% going to look for another wide receiver too. Justin Shorter is ready to come back, but I don't see any scenario to which he plays any role throughout the 2023 season, even in 2024. You guys know how this coaching staff is, right? Like it's, how this coaching staff is. So you're going to see Buffalo go after a wide receiver in the free agent market next year to kind of replace what they thought they were going to have in Gabe Davis that just hasn't materialized. And Shakir is a good player. And I think people in, a lot of Bills fans have thought, oh, great slot guy. He's 6'1". Like he's not. That's not the profile that he fits, and he's losing snaps to Dawson Knox right now, which is driving me personally crazy to watch Dawson Knox out there. Don't get me wrong. I think Knox plays a pivotal role in the red zone, but that's all that I'm excited to see Dawson Knox out there for is in the red zone. I think he's a viable red zone target. He, again, gives you a usable personnel package because you have 2 very viable tight ends there. But outside of that, that's it.
You can't just play him in the red zone, though, Paul, because then he turns into Edwards.
I know.
He becomes Edwards.
I know he does. All right.
Do we want to skip over to the playoff simulator?
We should do that. We should do that.
Hey, guys, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're here, let me go here. Let's go playoff scenarios. There we go. Oh, look at this. Bills are in the 6th seed. All right, we're done. All right, no, I'm just kidding. So, obviously, Baltimore is locked up the number 1 seed. Miami is currently holding the number 2 seed, 11-5. Indy is a surprise team for me, as well as Cleveland and Pittsburgh. I don't know how Pittsburgh. I think is Pittsburgh still have negative points against their opponent?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, sure do.
How? How the hell are they winning games? Like, it's baffling.
Mason Rudolph at quarterback, baby.
By the way, if y'all didn't pick Mason Rudolph on the week of Christmas, like whatever kind of what are those bets? Those prop bets?
Daily fantasy.
Prop bets.
Yeah.
Daily fantasy. Yep.
You should have picked Rudolph
Prop bets,
on all of them. All right. So if we look at this, obviously Paul mentioned it earlier, Ryan mentioned it earlier. If the Steelers win and the Jags win and the Bills lose, who else has to win? Houston?
Nope, nobody else has to win. So the way that it shakes out is if the Jags, so the winner of Houston and Indianapolis is in. The question is, if Jacksonville loses, then there's a possibility that one of those teams wins the division, and the Jags become the wild card spot head to head with the Bills. They've got the tiebreaker, so Buffalo's out.
Okay, so yeah,
so nothing has to happen beyond either a Steelers loss or a Jags loss, and Buffalo is in regardless of what happens against Miami.
Right, just depends on where you go the following week. Right, so it is possible you can go Buffalo, Miami, right, in Miami both ways. So that's very possible. The Buffalo plays Miami in the first round at home again.
So I think I don't know if that's how it shakes out though. I don't know that Miami can go lower than the 6th seed.
No, what I'm saying is Buffalo could squeak in as the wild card, pull the 7th seed.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. They could be the 7th seed,
playing back to back. Yeah,
right, playing back to back.
But if the reserves for Baltimore,
and that's something worth talking about.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Do you sit your starters if you're Harbaugh against in your Baltimore? I don't know that I sit them all game. 2 weeks is a long time off for a team that's relatively healthy outside. Well,
because you're going to get the bye
for the year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you run preseason scripting, right? I think you're getting the ball out of Lamar's hands quick. Like, I think that's what you're doing is you're running preseason scripting. You're just trying to get in and out without anybody hurt. That's the goal.
Is that the goal all the time, Paul?
Well, I mean, more so the game that you don't have to play, right? Like, this is the game you don't have to play.
Just go in and out and not get hurt.
That's it. Wouldn't you rather see the Steelers in the playoffs? Like, wouldn't you rather have, open the door for the Steelers to make the playoffs and run the gamut that maybe you push the Bills out? Wouldn't you rather do that?
You are absolutely no fun right now.
Well, I'm just saying. If I were the Ravens, I would be
you didn't even get what you said. I was trying to make a joke and you didn't even get what you said.
No.
Let's not forget either. We were in a very similar situation last year with Baltimore, and Baltimore had nothing to play for, and they almost beat the Bengals with their reserve players. I mean, the Baltimore team is deep. Their backups are absolutely capable of, and Spin pointed it out in the chat, that Baltimore's reserves can absolutely beat Pittsburgh next week. Tyler Huntley is perfectly serviceable as a quarterback.
Yep.
The running scheme that they run with Modkin is something that they can do regardless of who the talent is. They're good enough to win outright. And again, we'll know because that's the first game of the weekend this weekend, which was a really interesting decisioning on the NFL's part.
Right. Well, let's just talk about that. For those that are unaware, week 18, every game is scheduled for 1:00. So the NFL schedules every game in week 18 for the 1:00 time slot, and then they can move the games around as the matchups present, right? Now, that does give some advantages to teams like Buffalo and Miami. Buffalo's got a huge advantage because every game that impacts you will have already happened, right? You'll already know. Whereas if this game were at 1:00, it changes the paint job on this game. Of course, you want to be the 2 seed. Of course, you want to go in and win the football game. But from a pressure standpoint, you'll know what road is in front of you by 8:30.
The last game of the year is Buffalo, Miami. I mean, that's insane. That's insane to me. Well, I mean, McDermott doesn't have to tell the guy in the booth not to put the score up on the scoreboard.
That's true.
For that. They didn't show that at all. Apparently in the stadium they didn't show.
Yeah, other team scores. Yeah, the around the league scores. Right.
If we're going back to Baltimore, I want to disagree with you guys a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be such as far as a preseason game for them because obviously sitting out 2 weeks generates a lot of rust. Like, I don't think they're just outright going to sit their starters. I agree with you guys on that. But I think you want to keep the momentum and or routine that you have with your players for at least the half.
Mm-hmm.
So your pregame warm-ups, how you prepare for the game, get that going. And then for the second half, they play one series.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mario. I agree with you there.
But you guys were talking about preseason. I thought preseason was like, oh, you're going to play 3 series and you're done. Like,
no.
I would say a half. I would say a half.
Yeah, first series, I think makes sense. Yeah,
I think they play a half.
They could. If you're playing your starters against Pittsburgh, you legitimately could go into halftime up 2 scores.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a 2-score football game at halftime. In which case, I would fully expect Huntley to be the guy the rest of the way.
I mean, as much as they probably don't want to play Buffalo, and I don't think a lot of teams do at this point, they probably do after that New England game. But I'm saying prior to the New England game, nobody wanted to play Buffalo. We're probably forgetting the rivalry that goes on between Pittsburgh and Baltimore. I think letting Buffalo in the playoffs is secondary to them knocking Pittsburgh out.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would rather knock Pittsburgh out of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really, because those two teams hate each other, like with a burning passion.
So, let's get past the Baltimore game, right? Because I think from a talent perspective, we're all under the impression that Baltimore should just steamroll, right?
Okay.
I think we're all under that impression.
So we'll get that one.
The Jaguars Titans game is an interesting one to me because is Lawrence going to be out?
It's at
it
Tennessee
sounds like
too.
It sounds like Lawrence is going to be out. Yeah. I don't know that I would plan on him being the quarterback.
Okay.
Even because if wait, as far as the South goes, if the Titans win and Houston wins, is Jacksonville out? Oh no,
yeah.
the 7th
No,
seed.
Jacksonville's the 7th seed.
Yeah. Okay. So that would
if
with a loss,
Pittsburgh loses as well. Assuming Pittsburgh loses as well, right?
Well, and I don't think there's any way that if Buffalo's the wild card team, there's no way they draw a great matchup, right? Because they're either going to be the 6th or 7th seed, which means in all likelihood they're either playing Miami or playing the Chiefs, right? There's no way that you can carve this up where they're not really going to be playing one of those 2 teams, which I think is motivation enough to curb stomp the Dolphins and just get past this. Because I would love to send Miami. Paul's
doing his level best to talk himself into being optimistic about this game.
I would love to send Miami to Kansas City, right? Ideally, as a Bills fan, we'll let that happen. Send Miami to Kansas City. You guys have a great time over there.
This is probably the best scenario you have with Baltimore winning, Jacksonville losing, and Buffalo winning. And you get Jacksonville.
Yep. Love that. And you send Miami to Kansas City.
Wait,
let's make that happen.
Indy wins. Does that change it? No, it doesn't change it. Okay.
No, it's whoever wins the Colts, Houston
wins the division.
It's just a matter of whether they're winning the division
where they are. Okay.
Getting it as a wild card. Yeah.
I mean, put it normally I'd be fine with sending Miami to Kansas City because that's a ridiculous place to play. But I mean, I know Kansas City has beaten Miami, but that was before the bloom came off the rose. I mean, Kansas City,
Germany too. Yeah.
Kansas City 3 times this past weekend had field goals within like 30 yards, which means they were stalling in the red zone.
Well, if we look at let's just say this is the scenario we run into, right? So let's just imagine for a moment this is the scenario. You get Jacksonville. If you play out the next round, right? Let's just assume that Miami beats Kansas City. Right. And then at that point, you're just going to get the winner of Cleveland and Houston. That's what's going to happen.
I'll take that.
You get the winner of Cleveland and Houston. And I'm good for that. Baltimore gets Miami. That's fine. But no matter what happens, Baltimore gets at best. Let's see here. Baltimore would get at best Miami. Right. And at worst.
Miami.
Yeah, they would get Miami, or otherwise they would get
the winner of Cleveland and Houston.
The winner of Cleveland and Houston.
And then you get Kansas City coming to Buffalo.
And then you get Kansas City. That's what I mean, right? So that's why this is where the game gets really tough is, this is the matchup you want, right? You need some things to fall your way. But Baltimore could really get screwed by having to go against Miami. That's a tough draw, right? Like it is. It's a tough draw. Those
Really?
two teams. Yeah, I think so. If you look
They
at
just
the
hung
playoff games,
63 on them,
I
Paul.
was gonna say, didn't they just drop 56 points on them?
I get it, guys. I
Like,
get it.
this
But
past week.
again, you're gonna be coming off a bye week. Like, if I'm
Sure.
going to throw any team at Baltimore, would I prefer it to be Cleveland? To Ryan's point, yeah, I guess I probably would, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't mind getting Kansas City out of there. So like if we got to go for what's best for Buffalo,
at this point, I would love to have Kansas City go to Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
Like my perfect scenario, if this was the seeding and how it played out, we might be putting the cart before the horse here, guys, because Buffalo already lost to Jacksonville this year. So, we're talking about it like it's a game. Oh, you get Jacksonville, sweet. You lost to them. But if the Buffalo Bills win in this scenario that we currently have on the screen, the Buffalo wins, Kansas City wins, Cleveland wins. Okay. Cleveland will go to Baltimore. Kansas City goes to Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the first road playoff game that Patrick Mahomes plays in his career.
That's wild to think, isn't it?
Isn't it? Because they're always the one seed. They're literally always the one seed. So having Kansas City go to Buffalo for the divisional round in Buffalo, Ryan, you're a season ticket holder. How insane would that crowd be for that game?
Oh, that will be, that would be the loudest. And I say this about a lot of games. I said it about the perfect game that they pitched against the Patriots. That was the loudest game that I'd ever been to.
Ryan won't be at that game.
Bill Stadium.
Yeah, Ryan will look at those tickets and be like, "Those are $800 seat tickets."
He's been to 200 more games.
As a season ticket holder, because I didn't opt out, I've already paid for the tickets. So it would just be a matter of how much can I sell them for, and is it worth that versus going? But no, I mean, the Miami game against Buffalo this year was the loudest that I had ever heard that stadium. If you get Mahomes and Reed coming to Buffalo for a divisional round, it's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere for Bills fans.
That's a great point, Hoffins. That's a great point.
Yep. And Gnarly Nardo says if the Steelers and Jag win, Buffalo is out. Didn't we disprove that?
Only if Buffalo loses.
Yeah, only if Buffalo loses.
Yeah, so if the Steelers win, okay, I'll put this over here. Steelers win, Jags win, Buffalo loses. This is what we got.
Buffalo's out. That's right. But they'd have to lose. If Buffalo
What a
beat
lame
Miami,
playoff setup. Two teams from the South going? Come on.
Yeah, nothing matters if Buffalo wins. Buffalo is in with a win no matter what else happens in front of them.
Correct.
However,
just wanted to call that out.
Yeah,
just wanted to make sure that we address that right away.
There's kind of a breath of fresh air for flowing into the Bills locker room if either Pittsburgh or Jacksonville loses before their game. And I think both games are potentially games that those teams could lose. I mean, Jacksonville can absolutely, if Trevor Lawrence isn't under center and Will Levis is back for the Titans, I could absolutely see a situation where Derrick Henry runs for a vintage Derrick Henry type of game. And Tennessee
that would be his last game with the Titans.
It'd be his last one. They'll want him to death.
Game with the Titans. Yeah.
As opposed to what they've done with him in his entire career, Mario.
Well, I mean, do you think he retires at this point? Like, does he retire a Titan, or does he try and latch on somewhere?
He'll retire a Titan. It just won't be after this season.
Okay.
He'll go try to hook on with somebody, I think.
Okay.
What were you saying though, Ryan?
You said they were gonna run him into the dirt, and I said as opposed to what they've done his entire career.
Yeah, right.
That's true. Yeah. That is true. And then there's always that meme with him standing next to Mark Ingram. That's the funniest picture I've ever seen in my life. It's so amazing. Guys, in the chat, you help me out too. Correct me if I'm wrong. Has there ever been a scenario where it's you win, you're the second seed, or you lose and you're completely out? Has there ever been a scenario like that before with a team? I can't remember.
I mean, the AFC South, like, teams have made it before without a winning record. So yeah, that's probably happened before. I mean, maybe not.
No, I'm talking about the second seed though.
Yeah,
the 2 seed is kind of insane. Like we always thought. I mean, look, Cleveland, by all rights, it should be like the second seed or third seed, but they're in the same division as Baltimore. Like, I mean, that's a. This is why this is probably a discussion for another day. But I always wish that they would be like, okay, keep the divisions, keep all that stuff for your tiebreakers and stuff, but you should put the 7 best teams in.
Well, it's like the NBA,
regardless.
Right?
Yeah,
It's like the NBA. You just take the 8 best teams. You've got your conference schedule. You've got your divisional schedule for purposes of tiebreakers, for purposes of schedule building. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's 1 through 8, best record to 8th best record.
Yeah,
those are your seeds. And after each round, you just reseed. And that's how you roll.
Oh man, Lance brings up a great point. We could have a Swiftie invasion if Kansas City has to come to Buffalo. I don't know if my soul is ready for whatever that is.
Who's putting her through a table?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing.
So I'll give that, Mario.
I think we can.
Here's the thing. So I'll give some context. I'll give folks some context. So last year, the Cincinnati Bengals playoff game, those tickets, I resold 2. So I have 5 season tickets. 2 of them are in the 300s. 3 of them are down in the 200s in the rock pile section. The 2 that I had up in the 300s, I sold those in the 300s. I made $425 per ticket for the Cincinnati game last year, the divisional round game.
I believe that. Yeah, I believe that.
Now you put Mahomes coming to Buffalo with Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and the potential to see Taylor Swift like in a box. I would guarantee that those tickets are going to be. You won't get into the stadium for less than $500 a ticket. I will guarantee you that.
I was going to say
Kansas City coming to Buffalo. You will not get in the stadium for less than $500 a ticket.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That
went to go see Taylor Swift, happens, but there's a game
someone
playing.
Wants tickets, I will have at least 2 for sale. That's it.
That's not an advertisement. Just making sure people know.
I will keep my 3 and see if these 2 jamokes want to come with me. The other 2 will be for sale.
Woo! So. Oh boy.
Paul doesn't go to a game if it's under 60.
Yeah, it's going to be cold. That's January football. Paul doesn't do January football.
I'll give you my hunting gear, Paul.
January football hasn't mattered much for the Bills over the history of my life. So.
Paul, we'll just sit you between the 2 of us. You'll be nice and toasty warm in between the 2 big guys.
That's funny.
That's ridiculous. Funny. Everyone's going to think we got signed by Tommy DeVito's agent. That's called a callback, Paul.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm just kidding.
I know. Well, I think, and I'm not I'm slender, but I'm 6 foot. I'm not below average height. You two are you guys will look like my bodyguards.
True. Well, we're gonna gold plate. I'm gonna go to Five Below and get a gold cover for your Android, so you can walk in there with a fedora.
Yep, that's how we do it.
That'd be phenomenal. All right, guys. Last but not least, real quick, the Miami matchup. What do you guys got and why? What do you guys got for this matchup? Paul, I'll go Paul, Ryan, and I'll.
I'll go first because then I could take a nap while Ryan talks. So
there you go. Bedtime story.
Yeah, Jesus. Miami's pretty banged up. And again for Miami, this isn't a game that it's a game that you want to win, right? But they're clinched already, so it just kind of controls who they play. So again, I'm curious to see how you proceed because they're in a similar situation of we don't have to win this football game. We'd like to win this football game. But I think after the embarrassing Baltimore matchup they just came from, they're going to give you everything they got. That being said, Miami has struggled to score 20 points on decent teams. I think Buffalo defensively is going to give them all that they can handle. I will say that the last couple times Buffalo has played Miami, injuries have taken Miami out of those games. They're coming in injured. So, I obviously don't wish any ill will on anybody, but I could safely recall the last couple Miami games. You had a quarterback starting in the playoffs who I don't think anybody had ever heard of. Prior to that, you had Tua going out. It's just been a myriad of misfortune for Miami when they played Buffalo. I think that misfortune's already happened to them. With all that being said, Buffalo should win this game, but I think it's going to be close the whole time because that's just what I've come to expect as a Bills fan. That's it. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a nail biter. You're going to see them squander red zone opportunities like they did last week, or did yesterday rather. Like that's going to be what happens. I hope Buffalo doesn't give up and go negative in the turnover battle. You do that against Miami, you will lose. that you did it against the Chargers and you won. Miraculously, you gave up 3 turnovers and still won. You cannot do that against Miami. You have to generate positive possessions. And if just long as they can stay even, not even go positive possession, just long as they are even in the turnover battle, they still should win by 10 points. So that's the way I see that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be wrong about this guy over my left shoulder here, right? Like I want to believe that he can get a team up back against the wall. Gotta have it. I mean, we saw what they can do when they're a team that wants something more than another team, and they did it against Dallas, right? That was a team that the Bills just wanted that game more than the Cowboys wanted it. And they went out and they just bludgeoned them. That's the type of game that really should come to play here against Miami. Is the Miami, Paul said it perfectly. Miami wants, they want to have this game if they can get it. Buffalo has to have this football game. Like they have to win this football game. And I like Josh Allen in a gotta have it, need to have it, win or go home game. He's performed well in those games in the past. He can get into shootouts. He can grind them out. He can go out and win by 1. He can go out and he can put on a show with this offense, and he can put up 50 if you give him the right tools to do it. I think they've got the right tools to do it. Miami's banged up. It'll be interesting to see the injury report. What is Tua's injury look like? Because don't forget, he did go down with a left shoulder injury to close that game out. Mm-hmm. McDaniel came out today and said he's not worried about it, but he said the same thing about Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert, neither of who played last week. So
you don't have to give anything to anybody till Tuesday, right? Like
that's true.
You don't have to give anybody to anything.
So it'll be telling, because if you're down Xavier Howard, you're down Bradley Chubb, you're down potentially Raheem Mostert, potentially Jalen Waddle, and if you go down Tua Tagovailoa and Buffalo comes into this football game, that game should be over before it starts. Now, that said, the Sean McDermott special is that you play down to teams and leave teams in games that they're not supposed to be in. And, you let them hang around, you lose the turnover battle 2-1, 3-1. And all of a sudden, you find yourself losing by a field goal because you had 12 men on the field at the end of a football game, right? Or you get a pass interference call in the end zone and they punch it in from the 1. My prediction of this game, and I think Buffalo is going to win this one by 2 possessions. I think Buffalo is going to win by at least a 2 possession margin. I'm thinking somewhere 31-18, somewhere in that range, 31-20, something to that effect. I think Buffalo is just going to hang it on them. Josh Allen's going to come out hot. He's going to go downfield. They're going to score points early. They're going to hang on come second half, because that's what Sean McDermott does really well, is he gets a lead and then he just clings to it for dear life. And I don't think Tua is a good enough quarterback to come from behind in a football game like this one. And I think Buffalo is ultimately going to wind up winning this one going away. We're going to be able to leave by the fourth quarter, as I tend to market it. Is if I can leave by the middle of the fourth quarter, the game's over already. I think that's going to be this type of football game. You're going to be up getting snacks, midway through the fourth, because you're not worried about what's going to happen.
Well, I'm going to take a completely different stance than you boys. I think the worst thing to happen to Buffalo, and I say this because of the previous points made by the two gentlemen to my left. If the Buffalo Bills are already in the playoffs, this is going to be the worst game you've ever watched, because they might start resting guys because they're already in it. And if they have to go on the road, they have to go on the road. But locking up the 2 seed would be like the most amazing thing for them to happen. The second worst thing I think could happen is if the Buffalo Bills blow this team out, because then if you have to see Miami down the road a little bit, and let's say you blow them out and then you get them at home again, Buffalo seems like the type of team, as Ryan has said multiple times, how McDermott gets this team ready. They're going to come out flat. It's like, oh, we've already blown this team out twice. We're going to beat them. How many times in the history of the NFL has a team beat a team twice and it lost in the playoffs? It's happened quite a bit, guys. It's happened quite a bit, because there were huge victories during the regular season, and then in the playoffs, they think they're just going to dog walk them, and it doesn't happen. I mean, I think what type of game that we're going to have is we're going to have, as Ryan likes to say, a McDermott special. This game is going to be close. This game is going to be closer than a lot of people think. And I'm happy that the game is going to be close. Buffalo Bills for the last 10 weeks have only played situational football. They literally have only, and they've given us all heart attacks because of it. And it sucks. You know what I mean? I mean, they haven't really blown teams out really since the second Jet game. That was it. That was really, I mean, I get Dallas. You can put Dallas in there too, but I mean, it was an NFC game. It didn't matter. Like, they needed the win, but they didn't need the conference. You know, it wasn't a conference win. But the point of that being is, I think it's going to be a close game. I think it would benefit Buffalo in the long run if it was a close game and they win it by 7 points at the end of the game. And I think it would benefit them going into the playoffs. If this is what you see come playoff time, that's the best scenario, I think, for the Buffalo Bills right now.
Yeah, I agree. You know, but the opposite side of that coin, right, is at some point it is possible that Buffalo is, you know, beating the living hell out of the Dolphins going into halftime. And then does Buffalo look at it and say, you know what? I don't think we need to put this on tape anymore. Let's just just keep this really stupid and simple. Let's not give any more tape out there, because there is a scenario where Buffalo could play Miami, where Buffalo has to come to Miami, or Miami has to come to Buffalo again.
Just run Fournette 30 times in the second half.
Well, you don't even know if he's going to be active, though, Ryan. Like, the games that control your fate, you have to have your roster in for actives before those games are done. So you won't really know whether or not you want to have Fournette active, right?
Well, like, you'll know because Pittsburgh plays Saturday.
Yeah.
So you'll know.
Well, what time's the Jags? Oh, but the Jags game only impacts seeding. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Jags game would only be playoff seeding at that point. But yeah. So
never mind.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree.
I rescind my point.
I think Mario, to your point, the best thing that happens for Buffalo is Pittsburgh loses. Buffalo comes into that game, love to have the 2 seed, but they wind up in a rock fight, and hell, have them down last possession, put the ball in Josh's hands, you know, go see if you can win it, and then see if McDermott can hang on to it, because that's something they've struggled with as well. So it wouldn't be too bad to get into some situational football, end of game scenarios in playoff feel type of football games for this.
Well, and what would it do to change the narrative of Buffalo in overtime? If this game goes to overtime and Buffalo wins and on the first possession of overtime, does that kind of get the monkey off the back there? Because Buffalo's got a horrific overtime record.
Tua didn't even get a possession. That's bullshit.
Okay. All right. Just ruin that point. Thanks a lot, Mark.
That's what I'm here for. All right. Guys, make sure you do all the fun stuff. Hit all the socials, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Make sure you give a shout out to our sponsor who's in the description of this video, Mr. Rogers Homes. For Ryan and Paul, I'm Mario. We're out of here. We're Hashtag Sports. You guys are Hashtag Nation. See you later.
Thank you, Paul, as well as the rest of the Hashtag Sports crew. It's an honor being a sponsor. Investing in real estate, especially in the Phoenix metro area, may change your financial picture forever. And it's easier than you may think. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and proud of it. Yet I live in the Valley of the Sun, have for decades, and love it. I also humbly run one of the top real estate teams in Arizona. We help others score, as it were, when it comes to buying, selling, renting, and of course, investing in real estate. I've been a multi-million-dollar producer for many years, and the Mr. Rogers Homes Arizona real estate team has earned the top spot at West USA Realty for 10 years plus. Again, thank you, Hashtag Sports. Go Bills.